There comes a time in every parent's life when the tables start to turn. One day, you are the wise, experienced parent, the one they look up to for answers. The next, your grown child is standing in front of you telling you exactly how you should be living your life. Suddenly, they are the experts on finances, health, relationships, and just about everything else. If you've ever found yourself in the middle of an argument with your adult child, wondering how the same kid who once needed help tying their shoes is now convinced they know better than you, this video is for you. Arguments with adult children are different from the ones you had when they were younger. You cannot just end the debate by saying, "Because I said so." They now have their own experiences and perspectives, and they are not afraid to challenge you. But here is the good news. Winning an argument is not about proving them wrong. It is about navigating the conversation with wisdom, humor, and just the right amount of strategy to make sure you come out on top. Today on AgeWise, we are diving into psychology-backed techniques that will help you hold your ground, get your point across, and maybe even teach them a lesson or two without them realizing it. We will cover why adult children argue differently, how to stay calm when they get worked up, and the secret weapon every seasoned parent has: the ability to turn the debate into a win without them even noticing. Stick around, because by the end of this, you will have the tools to walk away from any argument with your adult kids victorious, respected, and without losing your sanity. Let's get started. Understanding why adult children argue differently. When children are young, they look up to their parents as the ultimate source of wisdom. But as they grow into adults, something shifts. They start seeing themselves as equals, sometimes even as the ones who should be teaching you. This transition is natural, but it also explains why arguments with adult children feel so different. Psychologists say that part of this change comes from something called role reversal tension. As adult children gain independence, they want to prove that they are capable of making their own decisions. They may challenge your opinions more often, not because they disrespect you, but because they are asserting their autonomy. The problem is that in their quest to prove themselves, they sometimes forget that experience still counts for something. The second factor at play is emotional baggage from childhood interactions. Even in the healthiest families, adult children may still carry unresolved feelings from how conflicts were handled in the past. If they felt unheard or dismissed as kids, they might be more combative now, determined to be taken seriously. On the other hand, if they were always used to you having the final say, they may see arguing as their way of reclaiming control. Understanding this shift is important, because it means the argument is not always about what it seems to be about. Sometimes it is not really about whether you should get a new phone, change the way you eat, or take their advice about finances. It is about them trying to establish their own authority. The key to winning is recognizing that dynamic and responding in a way that keeps the conversation productive instead of turning it into a battle of wills. Instead of meeting their energy with frustration, you can keep your calm and approach the conversation strategically. That is where active listening comes in, and it is one of the most powerful tools you can use to stay in control of an argument. Let's talk about how to do it right. Staying in control without losing your cool. When an argument starts, the natural reaction is to jump in with counterpoints. The louder they talk, the more you want to make your own voice heard. But here is a psychological trick that immediately shifts the balance of power. Stop talking and start listening. Active listening is not just nodding along while waiting for your turn to speak. It means truly paying attention to what they are saying, asking questions, and making them feel heard. Studies in conflict resolution show that people become less defensive and more open to other perspectives when they feel genuinely understood. The best way to do this is by using reflective statements. Instead of cutting them off, repeat back what they just said in a neutral tone. If your adult child says, "You never listen to me when I try to help," resist the urge to argue and respond with, "So you feel like I do not take your advice seriously." This forces them to pause, because now they feel heard. It also slows down the argument and gives you control over the pace of the conversation. Another powerful technique is strategic silence. Instead of responding immediately, take a beat before answering. Studies show that a pause of even 3 seconds can make the other person rethink what they just said and soften their approach. Silence makes people uncomfortable, and in a heated argument, it can work in your favor by keeping things from escalating. Most people go into arguments wanting to prove a point, but if you make your adult child feel like you are genuinely considering their side, they will be much more open to listening when it is your turn to speak. And when that moment comes, knowing how to phrase your response can make all the difference. Let's talk about the power of framing and why the way you word your argument matters more than you think. The power of framing. winning without making them feel like they lost. The way you present your argument is just as important as the argument itself. If you come across as dismissive or overly critical, your adult child will dig in their heels, even if they know you are right. That is why framing is such a powerful tool. Framing means shaping the conversation in a way that makes your point more acceptable. Instead of saying, "You are wrong, and here's why," shift the focus. Use phrases that invite discussion instead of triggering defensiveness. For example, let's say your child is insisting that you need to switch to online banking because it is more convenient, but you are hesitant about technology. Instead of saying, "I don't trust these new systems," which makes you sound resistant to change, try saying, "I can see why you like online banking, but I have concerns about security. Have you looked into how safe these systems really are?" Now, instead of it being a yes or no battle, you've turned it into a discussion where they feel like they are part of the solution. Psychologists call this motivated reasoning. When people feel like they have reached a conclusion on their own, they are more likely to accept it. By subtly guiding the conversation, you make them think about your point of view without forcing it on them. Another way to frame a disagreement is by giving them credit before presenting your perspective. If they argue that you should exercise more, instead of saying, "I don't need you telling me what to do," try, "I know you care about my health and I appreciate that. Here is what actually works best for me." This makes them feel valued, which makes them more open to hearing your side. Framing is about making sure the conversation stays collaborative instead of competitive. And once you have set the stage, the next step is knowing when to walk away with the upper hand. Let's talk about the art of the strategic exit. Knowing when to walk away is the winner. Sometimes the smartest move in an argument is knowing when to stop engaging. Not every battle needs to be fought to the bitter end. The goal is not to crush your adult child's spirit or prove them wrong at all costs. The goal is to make your point, maintain respect, and walk away with your dignity and sanity intact. Psychologists refer to this as graceful disengagement, the ability to end an argument before it spirals into something unproductive. It is especially useful when the conversation is going in circles, emotions are running high, or your child refuses to see another perspective. A powerful way to exit an argument while keeping control is to agree to disagree, but on your terms. Instead of saying, "You just do not understand," which can sound dismissive, try, "I hear where you are coming from, and I respect that we see this differently. Let's leave it at that for now." This signals that you are not conceding, but you are also not going to waste energy going back and forth. Another strategy is to redirect the conversation to something neutral or humorous. If the argument has gone on long enough, suddenly shift gears. Say something like, "Well, we clearly have strong opinions on this. Now, are we going to argue about the weather too? Or can we agree that it has been way too hot lately?" Humor can diffuse tension and lighten the mood, making it easier to move on without lingering resentment. If your adult child is still pushing their point, another strong move is to hand the responsibility back to them. Try saying, "I trust you will figure out what works best for you, and I will do the same." This reinforces that you are not looking for their approval or permission to live your life as you see fit. At the end of the day, winning an argument with your adult child does not mean making them admit they are wrong. It means navigating the conversation with wisdom, patience, and humor, so you come out of it feeling respected and in control. Let's wrap this up with a final thought. At the end of the day, winning an argument with your adult child is not about proving them wrong or forcing them to agree with you. It is about staying in control of the conversation, keeping your dignity intact, and making sure your voice is heard without turning the discussion into an emotional battlefield. By understanding why adult children argue differently, practicing active listening, using strategic framing, and knowing when to gracefully exit, you shift the power dynamic in a way that keeps the relationship strong. You are not just winning the argument, you are winning in a way that leaves both sides feeling respected instead of resentful. And here is the secret. The best way to win is to make them think they won. When you guide the conversation, control the emotional tone, and keep things calm, they walk away thinking they made their point, when in reality, you led the discussion exactly where you wanted it to go. That is next-level parenting, no matter how old your kids get. Now, I want to hear from you. What is the most ridiculous argument you have ever had with your adult child? Did you win, or did you just decide it was not worth it? Drop your story in the comments. If you found this video helpful, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more smart and entertaining strategies on navigating life as an experienced parent. Thanks for watching AgeWise, and I will see you in the next video.